Saint Esprit, a quiet, picturesque village in the south of France. But in August 1951, it witnessed a bizarre and terrifying event. With no warning, 250 of its inhabitants were hit by a deadly outbreak of madness.
All these people were getting mad. All these people are affected by visions, hallucinations. The whole town didn't know what was happening.
The unexplained mass hysteria was blamed on the local baker's bread, said to be infected by a fungus called ergot, which if eaten can cause frightening hallucinations. But not everyone believes accidental ergot poisoning was the cause of the outbreak of madness.
I don't have any doubt whatsoever that what happened at Pont Saint Esprit was an experiment conducted for specific military and intelligence purposes to benefit the United States government.
Investigative journalist Hank Albarelli believes the CIA deliberately laced the bread dough with LSD, a chemical derived in the lab from ergot, to test the effects of the mind-altering drug.
Aimed specifically at producing those results that were witnessed.
After World War II, the US was obsessed with the idea of developing weapons that could win battles without spilling a drop of blood.
There are many academics and universities, as well as in government laboratories, working on all kinds of especially non-lethal weapons all the time.
And in the early 1950s, one such weapon being considered was LSD.
Now, what are the effects of LSD on a person?
The U.S. Army was extremely interested in the drug, the specific drug LSD, to incapacitate enemy troops and win battles.
But in their search for the perfect weapon, they often cross the line.
There is evidence that parts of the American national security establishment have tested LSD on people who had not necessarily given informed consent. In particular, on American service people who had not necessarily given informed consent.
And Albarelli believes that in 1951, the CIA planned a terrifying continuation of these experiments, putting a whole town's unsuspecting population under the influence of LSD. Some believe that in 1951, the CIA subjected the small French town of Pont Saint Esprit to a mass LSD poisoning experiment. But if the conspiracy is to be believed, why did the CIA choose Pont Saint Esprit? Investigative journalist Hank Albarelli believes a key factor was the town's close proximity to large American military bases, which could, he claims, allow CIA officials to travel in and out of the country undetected.
There were 2 Army facilities, including an air base that were close by, where people could come in, not necessarily go through customs or immigration and have a passport stamped.
He also believes the town's left-wing political leanings could have given the CIA an added incentive to experiment with its inhabitants.
They were considered Reds, meaning they were commies. And the Cold War was fairly intense in terms of, what people would say or do against someone that was a commie, a damn commie, we can do anything with him.
But for Albarelli, the final and crucial advantage of doing the experiment in Pont Saint Esprit was that the town was just a day's travel from a Swiss pharmaceutical company called Sandoz. Sandoz invented LSD, and we now know that in the 1950s they were supplying it to the CIA.
The closeness of the town to the Sandoz facility means people could be very quickly dispatched from Sandoz, the so-called experts, and steer any consideration or investigation away from man-made compounds.
With the test site selected, The conspiracy claims that all the CIA needed to do was poison the inhabitants with LSD and observe the results.
In August 1951, many people didn't understand what was happening to them. They had visions, hallucinations. One young girl thought she was attacked by tigers. Another boy thought he was dead.
Within a few days, 50 people had been sent to asylums. And 5 had died. Police quickly suspected the local bakery, where all the victims had bought their bread. Local resident Jean-Pierre was 11 at the time and remembers the bakery well.
The town's life was here. Everyone lived here. 400 or 500 people bought their bread here.
But LSD was never considered by the police. Instead, they concluded that the grain used had been contaminated with the mold ergot. The baker was held responsible for poisoning his town through negligence. But Colombe never believed the police's story.
I'm 100, even 1,000% convinced that the poor man had nothing to do with it.
And Albarelli believes that the ergot story was a smokescreen fed to the police to hide the fact that the bread was actually laced with LSD.
It's my understanding that officials from Sandoz came within 48 hours. To me, it's just too convenient, too neat, too coincidental that Sandoz officials were the first and only independent investigators on site, and quickly on site. To me, smacks a cover-up.
And for Albarelli, all his suspicions were confirmed beyond doubt when he discovered an internal CIA report that detailed a dinner one of their informants had had with a Sandoz official. If the conspiracy is true, then the informant put in writing what the CIA were trying to keep undercover.
The Sandoz official had indulged a little bit too much wine and had gone off on sort of a rant and said that Pont Saint Esprit was not a case of ergot poisoning. And then the important thing was that it was an experiment.
For Albarelli, there is absolutely no doubt that the inhabitants of Pont Saint Esprit were the victims of an LSD experiment conducted by the CIA.
Those people at Pont Saint Esprit that were affected basically were collateral damage.
When we learned that the CIA might be involved, it made us laugh. But on second thoughts, I laugh less now.
When it comes to defending their interests, governments and government agencies will stop at nothing. And if their citizens get in the way, they are ruthlessly disposed of.